The notification came at 2:47 a.m. Her husband's Instagram had exploded. 37,000 new followers in 6 hours. Everyone was calling him the most supportive husband on the internet. But what she'd found hidden in his office 3 hours earlier made her blood run cold. Funeral home brochures. With her name on them. Pre-written social media posts about grief. Dated for next month. And a life insurance policy worth $6 million if she died, accidentally. She was 6 months pregnant. He was celebrating their baby online while secretly planning her funeral. The worst part? She wasn't the first woman he'd tried this with. What happened next became the most viral exposure in social media history, because she did something he never saw coming. She turned his own followers into witnesses. And 200,000 people watched live as his perfect husband mask shattered. This is the true story of how one woman live-streamed her own survival. And why she only had 7 weeks to execute the perfect plan. Because that's when he scheduled her accident. She shouldn't have looked. But pregnant women and sleep were enemies now, and her phone glowed like a lighthouse in the dark. The screen showed her husband's Instagram. 37,000 new followers in 6 hours. Another post. Another wave of adoration for the most supportive husband on the internet. And there he was, sleeping beside her, his face peaceful in the moonlight streaming through their curtains. If only she'd stayed asleep that night. If only she hadn't seen what was hidden in the comment section. The one comment he'd forgotten to delete. But she had. And nothing would ever be the same again. You are here, family. Welcome to Lifetales by Sally. It's clear you love a deep dive. I put dozens of hours into researching these stories. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 100 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these tales matter. Please subscribe to Lifetales by Sally, and let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. Her name was Elena, and 6 months ago, she'd married the man every woman claimed to want. Damian Cross wasn't just handsome, though his green eyes and that carefully maintained stubble certainly helped his social media presence. He was attentive, the kind of man who brought her favorite tea without being asked, who rubbed her swollen feet after long days, who documented every moment of her pregnancy journey with the devotion of a nature photographer capturing endangered species. "My queen is growing, our miracle," he'd captioned a photo of her at 12 weeks, hand on her small bump, eyes closed in what looked like peaceful contentment. What the camera didn't show was that she'd been crying 30 seconds before because he'd criticized how she'd loaded the dishwasher. But he'd wiped her tears, adjusted her hair, and captured pure Instagram gold. 2 million likes. 15,000 comments. Women praising him. Men claiming they'd learned from his example. Brand deals started rolling in. Pregnancy vitamins, maternity wear, even a furniture company wanting them to design a nursery collection. "We're building an empire, babe," Damian had said, kissing her forehead while scrolling through collaboration offers. "Our baby's already changing our lives." She'd felt grateful then. Lucky. She'd married a man who wasn't afraid to be vulnerable, to show emotion, to celebrate fatherhood publicly in a world where so many men ran from responsibility. Her mother had warned her, of course. "He posts more about you than he talks to you," she'd said over lunch 3 months into the marriage. "Don't you find that strange?" But mother's always worried. And Elena had been too in love to listen. Too dizzy from the whirlwind romance that had taken her from their first coffee date to a courthouse wedding in 11 weeks. "When you know," Damian always said. And she'd believed him. The pregnancy announcement video had gone viral beyond anything they'd imagined. Damian had filmed her reaction to the positive test. Real tears, real shock, real joy. Except she hadn't known he was filming. She'd walked out of the bathroom holding the stick, and there he was with his phone, already recording, already narrating. This is it. This is the moment everything changes. She'd been too overwhelmed to question it then. Too emotional to ask why his first instinct had been documentation rather than embrace. The video hit 5 million views in 2 days. Their follower count exploded. Suddenly they weren't just a couple, they were a brand. "Pregnancy content is goldmine territory," Damian explained, showing her analytics she didn't understand. "Authentic, emotional, relatable. We're sitting on something big here." The sponsorships multiplied. Her pregnancy became a content calendar. Week-by-week bump updates. Husband tries pregnancy symptoms challenge videos. Gender reveal planning footage. Each moment of her body's transformation became intellectual property in their growing digital empire. She'd started to feel less like a wife and more like a character in a show she didn't remember auditioning for. But the engagement ring on her finger was real. The baby kicking her ribs at 3 a.m. was real. And Damien's hand reaching for hers during doctor's appointments felt real enough. Until the night of the funeral home brochure. She'd been looking for tax documents in his home office. A room she rarely entered because creative spaces need boundaries, he'd said. The filing cabinet was organized with military precision. Bills, contracts, medical records. Everything labeled, everything in its place. The folder labeled estate planning seemed reasonable enough. They were having a baby. Responsible adults made plans. But estate planning didn't usually include full-color brochures for 3 different funeral homes, each with pages dog-eared and notes in the margins. Her hands had started shaking before her brain could process what she was seeing. Oakwood Memorial. Package C includes embalming, casket, service coordination. Note: ask about grief counseling resources for widowers. Widowers. Not widows. Widowers. She'd flipped through page after page, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. Comparison charts. Price breakdowns. A handwritten note that made her blood turn to ice water. Check life insurance beneficiary designation. Standard policy pays double for accidental death. Consider timing. Consider timing. Her first instinct had been rationalization. Maybe he was just being thorough. Maybe this was normal adulting she didn't understand. Maybe. But then she'd found the folder behind it. The one labeled after. Inside were printouts of social media posts, not posted yet but drafted. Dozens of them. All from Damien's perspective. All about grief. The house feels empty without her laughter. I wake up reaching for her and remember she's gone. Our baby will never know how extraordinary her mother was. Posts dated months ahead. Some marked 1 month after. Others 3 months after. One particularly chilling draft marked day of funeral showed a photo of him she recognized. One she'd taken of him looking pensively out their bedroom window. His caption: I don't know how to be a father without her. But I'll try. For both of them. Them. The baby. And the ghost of the wife he was already writing eulogies for. Elena had stumbled out of that office and vomited in the hallway bathroom, her pregnant belly pressing against the toilet bowl while her mind tried to reject what her eyes had seen. When she'd emerged, pale and shaking, Damien had been in the kitchen making himself a protein shake. You okay, babe? Baby kicking hard. She'd managed to nod, to smile, to accept his kiss on her forehead. Because the alternative, confronting him right then, showing her hand before she understood the full game, felt more dangerous than pretending she still didn't know. That had been 3 days ago. 3 days of sleeping beside a man who'd apparently planned her death with the same meticulous attention he gave his content calendar. 3 days of watching him film, preparing the nursery. Videos while knowing what else he was preparing. 3 days of pretending everything was fine while her mind raced through impossible questions. How long had he been planning this? Was the pregnancy part of the plan, or had he adapted when she'd gotten pregnant? Did he actually love her, or had this always been about building a tragic backstory that would launch him into grief influencer stratdom? And the most terrifying question of all, when was he planning to execute whatever he had in mind? Now, at 2:47 a.m., staring at his sleeping face while her phone glowed with notifications about his latest viral post, a time-lapse video of him assembling a crib with the caption, "Building a future for my girls," Elena made a decision. She wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. She was going to investigate, document, gather evidence. Because if she'd learned anything from being married to a man who recorded everything, it was this. In the digital age, truth wasn't just spoken. It was captured, time-stamped, and uploaded for the world to witness. She took a screenshot of his follower count. Then she opened her own notes app and began typing everything she remembered from that office. Every brochure, every drafted post, every chilling detail. Beside her, Damien stirred slightly, murmuring something in his sleep. She froze, barely breathing, until he settled again. Then she kept typing. Because somewhere between the funeral home brochures and the pre-written grief posts, Elena had realized something that both terrified and empowered her. He'd made one critical mistake. He'd taught her exactly how powerful documentation could be, how a well-timed recording could change everything, how the court of public opinion was often more powerful than any legal system. He'd built his empire on capturing authentic moments. and she was about to give him the most authentic moment of his life. The moment his perfectly curated facade crumbled in real time, for all his followers to see. She just had to survive long enough to press record. The pharmacy was empty except for a tired cashier scrolling through her phone and a security camera blinking red in the corner. Elena stood in the vitamin aisle, her hand hovering over prenatal supplements, wondering if even these were safe anymore. Could he have tampered with them? Was she being paranoid? Or was paranoia actually survival instinct when your husband was planning your funeral? She grabbed a new bottle, different brand, unopened seal, and paid cash. No digital trail. She was learning. The past week had turned her into someone she didn't recognize. Someone who checked her food before eating it. Who pretended to take her usual vitamins, but actually flushed them down the toilet. Who smiled for his cameras while secretly recording conversations on her Apple Watch. "You're glowing today," Damien said that morning, filming her making breakfast. The phone followed her every move, cracking eggs, pouring orange juice, adjusting her maternity dress. "Look at her, guys. 6 months pregnant, and still takes my breath away." The comments rolled in immediately. Heart emojis. Crying faces. Relationship goals. "I wish my husband looked at me like this." If only they knew he was looking at her the same way a director studied an actress before her final scene. "Babe, can you turn a little more toward the window? The lighting's perfect right now." She turned. She smiled. She played the role he'd written for her. Because she'd made a discovery that changed everything. She wasn't the only one gathering evidence. 2 days after finding the funeral brochures, Elena had done something she'd never thought herself capable of. She'd installed monitoring software on his laptop. The kind of spyware advertised to suspicious spouses on Reddit forums, promising invisible tracking of every keystroke, every browser history entry, every file opened. It was easier than she'd expected. Damien was so confident in his control, so certain of his narrative, that he'd never imagined she'd fight back with his own weapons. What she'd found made the funeral brochures look like amateur hour. He had a separate cloud drive, hidden behind 3 password-protected folders with innocuous names like tax documents 2023 and insurance papers. But inside those digital matryoshka dolls was a blueprint so detailed, so methodically planned, that Elena had to walk away from the computer twice just to breathe. There was a timeline. An actual timeline with dates and milestones. Phase 1. Establish public narrative complete. Build social media presence as devoted husband. Create sympathetic, relatable content. Goal. 100K plus followers who are emotionally invested in relationship. They'd hit 247,000 followers last week. Phase 2. Pregnancy announcement complete. Maximum emotional impact. Leverage father journey content. Secure brand partnerships. Goal. Monetize audience investment. The sponsorship money was already rolling in. $15,000 last month alone. Phase 3. Escalate vulnerability content in progress. Share fears, anxieties about fatherhood and loss. Plant seeds for grief narrative. Goal. Audience believes I'm terrified of losing her. She'd found 13 draft posts in this category. Each one carefully crafted to seem spontaneous, authentic. Her favorite, and by favorite she meant most stomach-turning, was captioned, "Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night just to make sure she's still breathing. I know it's irrational, but I can't shake this fear of losing her." Anyone else feel this way? 8,000 sympathetic comments. Thousands of people reassuring him that his fear was normal, that it showed how much he loved her. He was building an alibi out of emojis and engagement metrics. Phase 4. Incident scheduled. Week 38 of pregnancy. Details in separate encrypted file. Backup plans A, B, C documented. Goal. Appear unquestionably accidental. Week 38. That was 7 weeks away. 7 weeks to live, according to his content calendar. The encrypted file had taken her 2 days to crack. She'd used his childhood dog's name, his mother's maiden name, his high school mascot. Every possible combination until finally, almost laughably, it was their anniversary date. The man planning to kill her had password-protected the details with the day they'd gotten married. Inside the file was a document titled Accident Scenarios, Risk Assessment. Each scenario was outlined with bullet points, probability percentages, and potential legal complications. Scenario A, staircase fall, 78% success rate, 15% legal scrutiny risk. Pregnant women are statistically prone to balance issues. Hardwood stairs, unexpected obstacle at top, late evening when tired. Witnesses, none. Evidence. Text message sent to friend about feeling dizzy earlier that day, timestamp 6 hours before. Call 911 immediately, begin CPR, maintain distressed husband narrative. She'd had to close the laptop. Walk to the bathroom. Splash cold water on her face until the shaking stopped. There were 6 scenarios. Each one researched with the thoroughness of a graduate thesis. Each one designed to look like tragic accident. Each one timed to maximize both the life insurance payout and social media sympathy. But it was the addendum that finally broke through her shock and ignited something else. Something cold and calculating and utterly focused on survival. Post-incident content strategy. Day 1 to 7. Silent grieving period, no posts builds anticipation. Week 2. Return with raw, emotional video. Unscripted feel, script attached. Address outpouring of support. Mention baby is only reason to keep going. Week 3 to 8. Document single father journey. Pregnancy complications. Premature birth if possible, increases sympathy. Month 3 to 6. Partnership opportunities with grief counseling apps, single-parent resources, life insurance companies. Month 6 to 12, book deal. Speaking circuit. Podcast launch, living after loss. Year 2, remarriage arc, choose new partner carefully, must complement brand. He'd planned his next relationship before finishing the current one. He'd monetized her death before she was even dead. And the most chilling part? His research was solid. He'd studied other grief influencers, analyzed what made their content resonate, identified gaps in the market. There was a competitor analysis spreadsheet comparing him to 3 other widower dads on social media, complete with follower counts, engagement rates, and estimated annual income. Current top grief content creator. 1.2 M followers, estimated $400,000 annual revenue through sponsorships, book deals, speaking fees. Market gap. Younger demographic, more attractive presentation, better production quality. Opportunity for dominance in niche. He wasn't planning a murder. He was planning a hostile takeover of the grief influencer space, and her body was just the product launch. Elena had printed everything. Hidden the papers in her gym bag, inside a zippered pocket she knew he'd never check because Damien thought women's exercise equipment was beneath his notice. She'd also uploaded copies to a cloud account he didn't know about, sent encrypted files to her best friend Marissa with instructions. If anything happens to me, open this. But evidence alone wasn't enough. She knew how this would play. He'd say the documents were fiction, creative writing, dark humor he used to process anxiety. His lawyers would paint her as an unstable pregnant woman having paranoid delusions. His 247,000 followers would defend him, attack her, call her an attention-seeking liar trying to destroy a good man. She needed more than documents. She needed him to confess. And she needed witnesses, the kind that couldn't be dismissed or discredited. His own audience. The plan had formed slowly, carefully, the way good content always did. Damien had taught her that. Every viral video needed the right elements: emotional hook, rising tension, unexpected twist, satisfying payoff. She was going to give him the performance of his life. But first, she had to survive his. "Hey babe," Damien called from the living room, where he was setting up ring lights for their afternoon. "Baby kicks caught on camera." Video. "You ready?" "Lighting's perfect right now." Elena placed her hand on her belly, feeling their daughter. Yes, a girl. They'd found out last week in a gender reveal that got 3.2 million views. Kick against her palm. Strong. Fierce. Fighting already. "Coming," she called back, her voice steady despite the fact that her hands were shaking. She caught her reflection in the hallway mirror. 6 months pregnant, glowing with that Madonna-like radiance everyone commented on. She looked exactly like what she was supposed to be. The perfect wife, the perfect mother-to-be, the perfect content. But her eyes told a different story. They were the eyes of someone who'd seen behind the curtain, who knew the show was rigged, who was about to rewrite the ending. "Remember to act natural," Damien said, adjusting the camera angle as she entered. "Just react authentically to the kicks. People love authentic." Authentic. The word had lost all meaning. She sat in her designated spot, the cream-colored armchair by the window, the one that photographed beautifully in afternoon light. Placed her hands on her belly. Smiled at the camera. "Ready when you are," she said. And meant something entirely different. The life insurance agent had kind eyes and a nervous habit of clicking his pen. "Mrs. Cross, I just want to make sure you understand the policy your husband purchased, he said, sliding papers across his desk. It's quite substantial for someone your age. $3 million. With a double indemnity clause for accidental death. 6 million reasons for her to die before the baby was born. Elena had called the insurance company herself, pretending to have questions about beneficiaries. What she'd discovered made the funeral brochures look like innocent planning. Damien had taken out the policy 5 months ago, 2 weeks after their positive pregnancy test, and had been making substantial payments to keep it active. He'd also inquired, according to the agent's notes, about the exact definition of accidental death and whether pre-existing conditions would void the policy. The agent, clearly uncomfortable, had flagged the account for review. Is there something you want to tell me, Mrs. Cross? The agent asked gently. She'd wanted to scream, to show him everything, to beg for help. Instead, she'd smiled and said, just wanted to understand our financial planning. My husband handles most of it, because she still didn't know who she could trust. And more importantly, she was starting to realize that legal justice moved slowly, required proof beyond reasonable doubt, could be manipulated by good lawyers and better public relations. But viral justice? That was immediate, inescapable, permanent. The internet never forgot. She just had to orchestrate it perfectly. The pieces were falling into place, but one mystery remained. Why now? Why her specifically? The answer came from a source she'd never expected, Damien's ex-girlfriend. Natasha had messaged her on Instagram 3 weeks ago. A simple DM. We need to talk about Damien. Please. It's important. Elena had almost deleted it. Jealous ex-girlfriend, she'd assumed. Drama she didn't need. But something made her respond. Maybe intuition. Maybe desperation. Maybe the universe throwing her a lifeline. They'd met at a coffee shop 40 minutes outside the city, far enough that no one would recognize them. Natasha had arrived with a folder thick enough to be a novel manuscript. I know how this sounds, Natasha had said, her hands shaking as she pushed the folder across the table. Bitter ex-girlfriend trying to ruin his happiness. But I'm not bitter. I'm terrified. Because I think he tried to kill me too. The folder contained medical records, police reports, and a timeline that made Elena's blood run cold. Natasha and Damien had dated for 2 years. Sweet at first, then controlling. He'd isolated her from friends, monitored her phone, documented everything about their relationship on social media. A smaller following then, maybe 20,000, but growing. Then came the proposal. The engagement photos that went viral. The wedding planning content that brands started noticing. And then, 6 weeks before the wedding, Natasha had nearly died. Carbon monoxide leak, Natasha explained, her voice hollow. In my apartment. The detector had been disabled, battery removed. Fire department said it was negligence on my part, that I'd forgotten to maintain it. But I never touched that detector, Elena. I'm obsessive about safety. Always have been. She'd been found unconscious by a neighbor. Hospitalized for 3 days. Damien had been there every moment, filming himself as the devoted fiancé keeping vigil. The posts had gone mega viral. Almost lost the love of my life today. Nothing else matters except the people we love. 80,000 new followers in a week. The engagement ended after that, Natasha continued. I couldn't explain why, but something felt wrong. The way he'd positioned his phone to capture my hospital room at the perfect angle. The way he'd already written captions before I'd even woken up. The way he seemed almost disappointed when I survived. No life insurance policy that time. No payout. Just viral content and a massive follower boost that had gotten him noticed by bigger brands. He'd learned from that mistake. With Elena, he'd made sure there would be a payout. I have no proof, Natasha had said, tears streaming down her face. Just this horrible certainty that he orchestrated it. But who would believe me? His followers worship him. I came forward once, tried to tell people, and they destroyed me online. Called me jealous, attention-seeking, mentally unstable. I had to delete all my social media and move cities. She'd gripped Elena's hand across the table. When I saw your pregnancy announcement, I felt sick. Because I recognized the pattern. The escalating posts about fear of loss. The oversharing of intimate moments. The way he's positioning you as this precious, fragile thing that could disappear any moment. He's building sympathy credit, Elena had whispered, finally understanding the full scope. Exactly. So when you're gone, everyone already believes he's a devoted husband who is terrified of losing you. No one questions it. No one investigates too closely. It's just a tragic accident that happened to a man who publicly adored his wife. Elena had sat with that information for hours after Natasha left. Sat with the realization that she wasn't his first victim. She was just the first one he'd refined his method for. The first one worth $6 million and a grief influencer empire. Now, standing in their kitchen making dinner, while Damien edited footage in his office, Elena checked her watch. Phase 1 of her own plan was complete: gather evidence. Phase 2 was about to begin: force his hand. She'd been leaving breadcrumbs for weeks. Little things. Subtle things. Mentioning to friends how dizzy she'd been lately. Creating witnesses who'd remember if something happened. Accidentally, posting on her Instagram story about feeling unsteady on the stairs. Establishing a public record. Telling the doctor she was having trouble sleeping. Documenting phantom symptoms that would make an accident seem more plausible. She was building the exact narrative he needed. Making herself look like the perfect victim. Because people confess when they think they're winning. When they believe their plan is working. When they let their guard down. Damien emerged from his office, phone in hand, that practiced smile on his face. "Babe, I was thinking we should do a live stream next week. Q&A about the pregnancy, our relationship, advice for new parents. Our engagement's been insane lately." "Sure," Elena said, stirring pasta sauce. "That sounds nice." Nice. That was the word, wasn't it? Everything was nice. Their nice house. Their nice marriage. Their nice social media presence. Nice was the mask over the monster. "Oh, and I booked us a couple's massage for Saturday," he continued, kissing her cheek. "You've seemed stressed lately. Thought it might help you relax." Couple's massage. She'd found the receipt in his phone. He'd actually booked a solo deep tissue appointment for himself. The couple's story was for content. But what scared her was the location. A spa 40 minutes up a winding mountain road. Winding mountain road. Pregnant wife. Dizzy spells she'd been documenting. Scenario B from his encrypted file. Vehicle accident on mountain pass, 65% success rate, 22% legal scrutiny risk. Sharp curves, poor cell service, documented history of dizziness. Driver overcorrects to avoid hitting wife who suddenly feels ill. Vehicle leaves road. Driver survives with minor injuries. Wife and unborn child do not. She'd found rental car confirmations in his email. He'd specifically requested a vehicle with front passenger airbag disable function. Standard for rentals, but suspicious given his research into airbag deployment patterns in pregnant women. "That's really thoughtful," Elena said, her hand unconsciously moving to her belly. "Saturday works." His eyes flickered with something. Satisfaction? Anticipation? The look of someone watching their plan come together? "You're the best thing that ever happened to me, you know that?" Damien said, pulling her into an embrace. His phone was still in his hand, camera facing them. Recording. Always recording. She smiled into his chest. "I know. What she didn't say. I know what you're planning. I know about the insurance. I know about Natasha. I know about the 6 different ways you've practiced killing me. What she didn't say. I've been practicing too." That night, after he fell asleep, Elena sat in the nursery they'd decorated together. The crib he'd assembled on camera. The walls they'd painted in a viral time-lapse video. The room that was supposed to hold their daughter. She placed her hand on her belly, feeling the strong kicks of a baby who deserved to meet her mother. "I promise," she whispered. "You're going to know me. I'm going to hold you. Read to you. Watch you grow up. I promise." Her phone buzzed. A text from Marissa. "Everything ready for Saturday?" Elena had told her best friend everything. Shown her the evidence. Outlined the plan. Marissa had wanted to go to the police immediately, but Elena had convinced her otherwise. "The police need proof of intent," she'd explained. "All they have is circumstantial evidence, and a man with 250,000 followers who'll testify to his character. But if we can get him to confess on camera, with witnesses." "You're talking about entrapping your own husband," Marissa had said. "I'm talking about surviving," Elena had corrected. Now she texted back. "Ready. Saturday at 2 p.m. Don't be late." The live stream wasn't scheduled for next week like Damien thought. It was scheduled for Saturday, during their couple's massage appointment that didn't exist, on the winding mountain road where he planned to kill her. And every single one of his 247,000 followers was going to watch. Saturday morning arrived with perfect weather, the kind of crystalline autumn day that made mountain roads look picturesque instead of dangerous. Elena watched Damien pack the car with choreographed efficiency. Bottled water. Snacks. His professional camera equipment, because the views will be incredible for content. A first aid kit that she'd personally checked and found suspiciously stocked with items unnecessary for a spa day. Heavy-duty gauze, trauma shears, a satellite emergency beacon. Tools for a hero who tried everything to save his wife, but tragically failed. "You feeling okay?" he asked, studying her face with what might have looked like concern if she didn't know better. "Not too dizzy?" She'd complained of dizziness all week, playing into his narrative. Each time she'd mentioned it, she'd seen that flash in his eyes. Satisfaction. Progress. "A little lightheaded," she admitted, one hand on her belly. "But I'll be fine. Fresh air will help." "We can cancel if you're not up for it," he offered, the concerned husband performance already warming up. "No, I want to go. I need this." She smiled. "Besides, you've been planning it for weeks." Something shifted in his expression. There and gone. The predator glimpsing the trap's opening. They drove in comfortable silence, his playlist filling the car. Indie folk songs about love and loss, carefully curated for the dashcam footage he didn't know she knew about. The camera mounted beneath the rearview mirror, positioned to capture the passenger's seat more than the road. Evidence of her final moments, from his perspective. Except the script was about to change. 40 minutes into the drive, as they climbed into the mountains where cell service became spotty and curves became sharper, Elena's phone buzzed. A text from Marissa. "We're live. 12,000 watching." Not just Marissa. Elena had spent weeks reaching out to domestic violence advocates, true crime podcasters, journalists who specialized in social media manipulation. She'd sent them everything. The documents, Natasha's testimony, the timeline, the encrypted files. And she'd invited them all to a live stream that morning, telling them exactly what to watch for and when. Now, thousands of people were watching a split-screen feed. Damien's Instagram account on one side and Elena's newly created anonymous account on the other. The one she'd kept secret. The one where she'd been documenting everything. On Damien's side, he'd posted a story 30 minutes ago. "Heading up to the mountains for some much-needed relaxation with my queen. She's been feeling under the weather, but I think the fresh air and quality time is exactly what she needs. Send good vibes. Blue heart." The comments were already pouring in. "You're such a good husband. She's so lucky. Relationship goals." On Elena's side, her pinned post read, "If you're watching this, something has gone wrong. Everything you need to know is in the thread below. Whatever happens next, know that I didn't fall. I didn't have an accident. And I loved my daughter enough to fight." "You're quiet," Damien observed, glancing at her. "Everything okay?" "Just thinking about the baby," Elena said truthfully. "About the future." "Me too." His hand found hers, squeezed gently. "I think about it constantly. About us. About everything that could go wrong." "Like what?" She kept her voice soft, curious. "I don't know. Accidents. Complications. You hear stories, you know? Healthy pregnancies that just end tragically." He was testing the waters, planting seeds. "It terrifies me. Is that why you took out that life insurance policy?" The car swerved slightly. Barely noticeable. But Elena noticed. She noticed everything now. "What?" His laugh was casual, but his grip tightened on the steering wheel. "What life insurance policy?" "The $3 million one. With the double indemnity clause." She kept her tone conversational, like they were discussing dinner plans. "The one you took out 5 months ago." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. "Babe, that's responsible financial planning," he finally said. "Making sure you and the baby are protected if something happens to me. Except I'm the policy holder. Not you." His jaw clenched. "We should talk about this later. These roads require concentration." "The roads," Elena repeated. "Right. These dangerous, winding roads. With poor cell service. And all those sharp curves where a dizzy pregnant woman might cause her husband to overcorrect and drive off the cliff." The car slowed. Damien pulled into a scenic overlook. One of those tourist stops with a breathtaking view and a fatal drop. No other cars. No witnesses. Exactly the kind of place that would feature in a tragic accident report. He put the car in park and turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "What are you talking about?" "I found the folders, Damien. The funeral home brochures. The timeline. The accident scenarios with success rate percentages." Her voice remained steady, almost detached. "I found the pre-written grief posts dated for after my death. I found your competitor analysis of other widower influencers." The mask slipped. For just a moment, She saw the real person beneath, calculating, cold, absolutely focused. You went through my personal files. I did. And I printed them. And uploaded them. And sent copies to multiple people with instructions to release them if anything happens to me. He laughed then, a sound without humor. You think anyone would believe you? You think my followers, our followers, would side with you over me? I've built this, Elena. This brand, this audience, this trust. You're just the supporting character in my story. Our story, she corrected. And here's the thing about stories, Damien. The audience decides who the hero is. She pulled out her phone, opened Instagram, showed him the split screen that 47,000 people were now watching. His face went white. You're live, she said simply. We both are. Have been for the past hour. Every word you've said. Every mile of this drive. Every comment you just made about me being a supporting character. She watched him process it. Watched the careful calculations running behind his eyes. The same eyes that had looked at her with love, with desire, with meticulous assessment of how her death would photograph. You can't prove anything, he said, but his voice had changed. Desperate now. Those files could be fiction. Creative writing. People write dark things to process anxiety. Natasha is watching too, Elena interrupted. And she's in the comments right now, telling everyone about the carbon monoxide incident. About how you almost killed her the exact same way. Building sympathy, documenting everything, creating the perfect tragic narrative. His hand moved toward the door handle. Fight or flight kicking in. I wouldn't, Elena said. Because there are 3 cars parked at the bottom of this access road. Journalists. Police. Domestic violence advocates. All waiting. All watching. All ready to document whatever happens next. She'd spent 2 weeks coordinating this. Reaching out to everyone who'd investigate, who'd care, who'd have the platform to make this undeniable. She'd turned his own weapon against him. The court of public opinion, the viral moment, the digital evidence that couldn't be erased. The comments are going crazy, she continued, scrolling through her phone. Let me read you some. Oh my God, those files are real. Someone call the police. I always thought he was too perfect. Narcissistic sociopath hiding behind husband goals. The way he just admitted she's a supporting character. That's everything. Damien's carefully constructed world was crumbling in real time, one comment at a time. I gave you everything, he whispered, and for a moment he almost sounded human. The house. The lifestyle. The platform. You were nobody before me. You're right, Elena said. I was nobody. Just a regular person living a regular life. And you know what? I'd give anything to go back to that. To never have met you. To never have become content in your redemption arc. She placed her hand on her belly. But I can't go back. Because she's here now. And she deserves a mother who fights. Who survives. Who shows her that you don't have to be anyone's supporting character. 60,000 people watching now. The number kept climbing. Damien's phone started buzzing. Text messages flooding in. Followers messaging. Brands pulling partnerships. His notifications were a wildfire of exposure, of accountability, of consequences. You've destroyed me, he said flatly. No, Elena corrected. I documented you. You destroyed yourself the moment you decided my life was worth less than your follower count. The police arrived 17 minutes later. By then, the live stream had hit 200,000 viewers. By evening, it would be on every major news outlet. By morning, it would be the top trending topic worldwide. The man who'd built an empire on authentic content had been exposed by the most authentic content of all, the truth. They arrested him on suspicion of attempted murder, insurance fraud, and a list of charges that kept growing as forensic accountants dug into his finances. The rental car company confirmed he'd inquired about airbag specifications. The insurance agent provided statements about his suspicious questions. Natasha filed an official report about her own near-death experience. The evidence that had seemed circumstantial alone became overwhelming when combined. But it was the court of public opinion that delivered the fastest verdict. His accounts were suspended. His sponsors dropped him in synchronized press releases. Think pieces appeared within hours, the dark side of grief influencing. When authenticity becomes sociopathy, how one woman live-streamed her own survival. Elena watched it all from Marissa's apartment, where she'd gone directly after giving her statement to police. Watched her husband's empire collapse in the same viral fashion he'd built it. You okay? Marissa asked, bringing her tea and a weighted blanket. Elena's hand found her belly, felt her daughter's strong kick. Yeah, she said. We're okay. 3 weeks later, sitting in a coffee shop with soft morning light streaming through the windows, Elena posted for the first time on her own account. Not the anonymous one. Her real one, with her real name, her real face, her real story. The photo was simple. Her hand on her pregnant belly, a genuine smile, no filters. The caption read, "They say pregnancy is about creating life. For me, it was about choosing it. Choosing to survive. Choosing to fight. Choosing to make sure my daughter knows that she came from strength, not tragedy." To everyone who watched, who listened, who believed, thank you. To everyone in similar situations who feels trapped, you're not. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Your life is not content for someone else's redemption arc. You are not a supporting character in anyone's story but your own. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is press record. The post went viral. 10 million views in 3 days. But this time, Elena didn't care about the numbers. She cared about the messages. Thousands of them. From women who'd felt something was wrong in their relationships but couldn't name it. From survivors who recognized the patterns. From people who'd been made to feel crazy for trusting their instincts. "You saved my life," one message read. "I found funeral brochures in my husband's office last week. Because of your story, I knew what to do." That's when Elena understood that her survival wasn't just personal. It was permission. Permission for others to trust themselves, to fight back, to refuse to be victims in someone else's narrative. Her daughter was born 7 weeks later. Healthy. Perfect. Fierce. Elena named her Vera. It meant truth. And as she held her daughter for the first time, feeling the weight of this small, powerful life in her arms, Elena whispered, "Your name means truth because that's what saved us. Never forget that, baby girl. The truth will always set you free, but sometimes you have to fight like hell to tell it." Moral lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous person in your life is the one who makes everyone else believe they're perfect. Trust your instincts. They're not paranoia when you're actually in danger. Your story belongs to you, not to someone else's algorithm. And remember, surviving isn't just about staying alive. It's about refusing to let anyone write your ending before you've lived your life. Document your truth. Believe your gut. Fight for your story. Because you are never just the supporting character. You are always the author of your own survival. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and tell us what you learned in the comments below. Your engagement helps these important stories reach people who might need to hear them.